Welcome to this week's Liquid Hash interview, where we're going to focus on learning more about Liquid Hash's expertise in the Bitcoin mining industry. Thanks for joining us, Nick.
Hey, thanks, Riley.
Cool. So we'll just jump right in. So our first question, how long have you been creating Bitcoin mines?
Yeah, so, I got into Bitcoin, almost 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago now, when I discovered what it was. And then I, had someone approach me about mining just a few years after that. I looked at it and didn't quite really understand it, but took a lot of notes, did some due diligence on it. And, busy with other projects, just kind of let it go. Well, then I found those notes, a few years later and was like, man, this is something I really need to look into and it's time to do it. And so, I'd say it was probably about 5 years ago where we contracted with some engineers and started going through the design phase of building out mines. And, a couple years after that, actually putting that into play, partnered into several mines with other operators. And, now it's a, full-time gig of just going out and deploying hash rate.
Wow. So you not only help companies create their own Bitcoin mines on their excess energy sources, but you've been in this game for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I ultimately just started doing this for myself, and then eventually, you'd have enough people that start kind of coming to you wanting to invest or wanting to get exposure to this industry. And, it's still very young and people, there's a need for people to kind of be guided along the way to do it, and in the earlier years, it's very much a hobby where you could do it at your house. And while you still can, if you're really going to turn in some form of a profit doing it, it is a scale game now at this point where you do have to put in, many millions of dollars to really be competitive on the long term.
Wow. Okay, that makes sense. And going along with that, are there any kind of like fun or professional tips you can tell us to maximize our Bitcoin mining processes?
Yeah, look, I think everyone should plug in a miner at their house, even if it's not profitable. This is something that, it's part of the network. If you own Bitcoin, having a miner on there, you're participating in its decentralization. I love the idea of everyone, self-mining, but ultimately, if it's something that you're looking to create an edge on, get more Bitcoin at an arbitrage, at less than what you can buy it for, then you got to have some kind of scale. And so, if you've got several $1 million and some cheap energy, then, certainly this is something that you could get into, with maybe a little bit of outside guidance and, it'd be a little nest egg for you. It's kind of like, maybe owning a piece of commercial real estate. But on the other side, if it's something that you don't have that type of access to either the capital or the energy, then, you got to be careful because there's ways to invest in the space that are great. And there's some that are really not so great.
Gotcha. So going along with that, that's an interesting comment. So besides this being a very powerful company and having that purpose, do you enjoy the Bitcoin industry? Is this something that people can jump into and kind of go along with and enjoy?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've met some of the greatest people, and it's certainly just a very nascent industry still. I mean, when we're talking about that, it's moving at a speed that's just absolutely mind blowing. And I'm meeting some of the smartest people every day, and it's good, to come into it very humble because, everyone has ways to add to its efficiency. And, I had a comment from someone that was looking to invest the other day, and they were saying, hey man, I feel like this is a crowded space, that there's a lot of big guys now that's doing this. And what you don't realize is that, there's a lot of mid-size and smaller companies that are just going to just gain so much market share in the coming years because they're able to do things that are pushing the envelope. And that's it. It's a highly competitive industry.
Interesting. So this next question is probably one of the most important today. Can you tell me about the things I'm hearing about people being scammed and issues with people are having with mining?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try not to, name any names on companies, but that's been kind of the talk the last couple of weeks, and I mean, and this has been going on for many years. It's there's a lot of facts that probably haven't been revealed, on both sides, and some of these things are starting to go into legal proceedings, but the main thing is that anytime if you have your Bitcoin in a custodial service like a BlockFi or a Celsius, or even on an exchange like Coinbase or Gemini, there's a saying, it's proof of keys. Do you own your keys? Do you control it? And that's one of the benefits of Bitcoin, is that you can self custody it. You don't need a third party to hold your Bitcoin. And while there can be a lot of ways with multi-sig and other ways, what I'm saying is that you're introducing a third party for what, a couple percent yield, and is it worth it? And ultimately, it's proving that it's not. Ask anyone who can't get their money out of Celsius right now. And it's kind of the same thing with mining, is that you have to be really careful with, if you're going into buying miners yourself and putting them in someone else's facility, because there's a lot of things. I mean, this is, I've done it myself. I've partnered up with people that had rack space and gone into their facility with miners I owned. And, for the most part, I've been lucky in that I haven't had a lot of the problems that people are complaining about now. But what you're seeing is that they put miners in places with political risk, and they didn't get them out at the right time. They thought, hey, this is going to be okay, and then it turns out they're not. And then now they can't get their miners out of the country. There's cases where they go out and they get someone who's inexperienced to build a mine, and they contract with them, and then they have issues with whether it's just operational issues with not being able to keep the right environment, or it's just blatant contractual things, like they didn't have their power contract buttoned up properly. You really need to understand exactly what's your counterparty risk. It's just like keeping your Bitcoin somewhere. You had a counterparty risk. They're taking it and leveraging it and loaning it out, and doing risky things with it to give you that yield and keep the difference. The same thing can be happening with a miner that's sitting in someone else's building. Is it your miner? Are they operating it at that best efficiency? And so, there's this thing with cloud mining where, it's largely always a scam, but, there's ways that I think people can invest in mining that are good, that help the network, that allow them to end up ultimately with more Bitcoin, but not have the issues that we're seeing today with the bigger names that have been marketing, hey, everyone can mine Bitcoin, when in fact, I see it as a broken business model. I see it as, if you're going to try to manage tens of thousands of people that each own a couple miners on average, it's just not going to work. I mean, this is a razor thin margin business, and you can look at even the bigger companies right now that don't own their own rack space. The largest one, if you go look at their public record right now, or what they've put out publicly, they had I don't know, this somewhere, I think 75% of their hash rate goes down because of a building that goes out. And it's like, well, now are you waiting for someone else to fix that? What's the story? There's just a lot of counterparty risk that gets introduced when you're not operating your own hash rate.
Gotcha. So it really sounds like for new players in the Bitcoin mining industry, they really just got to work with Liquid Hash, and your company will basically guide them through all the stuff that you just talked about. That's what I'm getting from that answer so far.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate statement. I mean, I think that if you're going to put in the time, go in and do all the work and have a lot of capital. If not, there's ways that if you have energy, we can work with you. If you don't have the capital, or if you have capital and you don't have a place to go, we have ways that we can work with you. If you don't know, you want exposure to this, and you say, hey, I believe in Bitcoin, I've got some Bitcoin, I'd like to get more, and I know that if I work with you guys, I can end up with maybe 2 or 3 times more over a 10-year period, let's say. That's certainly something that we can help people with.
Perfect. And what are Liquid Hash's strategies for communicating with its clients? So maybe about talking about it's the current hash rate, how often it gets paid. Like how do you communicate with your clients?
Yeah, so it's a case by case deal. If we've got someone that has a large mine that is under our management, we're running it for them. I mean, it could be something that they're able to log in and to see daily updates on, or in real time, not even daily. And it's just really going to depend on the unique situation. But one of our biggest tenets as a company is it's transparency. It's like that's the blockchain, that's the Bitcoin network. Is you can't fake it, it's there. And so we take our opportunity to instill that with all customers and partners and anyone we deal with, to say, look, I mean, this is what's happening on a day-to-day basis, and it's there for you to see. So it's as transparent as possible through dashboards, through just general communication. Like I said, a lot of that is going to depend on the project itself. Is how is it structured.
Perfect. And can a client reach out to Liquid Hash anytime for help with their future Bitcoin mine or current Bitcoin mine that Liquid Hash builds out for them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If we go out and we put a mine together for you, then, we would ultimately either, hand over a full operational package with it, or, we're going to be managing it for you. And I think, we tend to probably be more of the person that they've got an energy source and they don't want to manage it. They don't want to put in the work. They may have a little capital, maybe not. And we go in and kind of do everything, so it's not really them reaching out. It's more of us reaching out to them, just telling, hey, everything's taken care of, and here's where we're at.
Gotcha. So it really sounds like Liquid Hash takes the stress out of that entire process. So that's good to hear. And with that, does Liquid Hash work nationwide with any any person or company in the nation and with any excess energy source?
Yeah, I mean, not only nationwide, but I want to say worldwide. I mean, we've got some people we're working with now down in Argentina, and we've got a contact up in Canada that we're assisting. And while most of the stuff we're attempting to operate, we're trying to keep down in the South, mainly just because we're seeing that there's a lot of opportunity right now. And we've got some technology that allows us, maybe a little bit better operational efficiency in some of the areas that people have kind of overlooked. And we're just seeing the cheapest energy. I mean, we're working on a deal right now to generate about 7 megawatts of power, and our rate's going to be about 2 cents a kilowatt hour all in. And so these are the types of things that we're looking at and putting more effort into. So there could be reasons why we may see that it's not a large enough project, the cost is high, that we may have to go a little further out on our risk curve. That just might not make sense with stuff that we have. But I tell anyone, I'm happy to speak with anyone on where they're at, and if I can't help them, maybe just point them in the right direction to help them.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, thank you so much for all these amazing answers for today's interview. It's I think our viewers and listeners have really learned a lot about the credibility and expertise of LiquiHash today. Thank you so much again, Nick. We'll have our interview again next week and learn about Bitcoin, about LiquiHash. So thank you so much again, Nick.
Thanks, Rylan. Talk to you next week.
Yep, see you next week. And thanks to you, anyone who's listening to this week's episode. If you have any questions or want to learn more about LiquiHash, just go to www.liquihash.com. That's LIQUIHASH.com. See you next week.